Winter of 1939, Soviet soldiers learned to fear the silence, because in the silence, something was watching them, and it never missed. They couldn't see him, they couldn't hear him. All they knew was that the moment a man lifted his head, he died. One shot, every time. In just over 3 months, this one man killed more than 500 enemy soldiers. To this day, that's the highest confirmed sniper kill count in human history. And he did it without a scope. He wasn't a trained soldier. He was a farmer. He stood barely 5'3". The Soviets gave him a name that became a legend. Belaya Smert, the White Death. This is the story of Simo Häyhä. Simo Häyhä was born in 1905 in a small village in southern Finland called Rautjärvi. He was the seventh of 8 children, born into a family of farmers. His life, for the first 30 years, was unremarkable. He farmed, he hunted, he fished. But it was the hunting that mattered. Hayha grew up tracking game through the dense Finnish forests, often in brutal cold. He learnt to move silently, to stay still for hours, to control his breathing, to make a single shot count, because in hunting, you rarely get a second. He became an exceptional marksman. His home was reportedly filled with trophies from local shooting competitions. The skills that would later make him a legend weren't taught in the army. They were built over a lifetime in the woods. In 1925, at age 19, Hayha completed his mandatory military service. He rose to the rank of corporal. Then he went home, back to his farm and his quiet life. For the next 14 years, he was just a farmer. And then, in November 1939, the Soviet Union invaded Finland. To understand what Hayha did, you have to understand the war he did it in. In late 1939, the Soviet Union, one of the largest and most powerful nations on earth, demanded territory from Finland. Finland refused, so Stalin invaded. On paper, it was a slaughter waiting to happen. The Soviets had over 3 times as many soldiers, 30 times as many aircraft, 100 times as many tanks. Finland was outnumbered, outgunned, and expected to fall within weeks. But the Finns had 2 things the Soviets didn't. They knew the land, and they knew the winter. Finnish soldiers wore white camouflage and moved silently on skis, striking Soviet columns and vanishing back into the forest. The Soviets, in their dark uniforms, stood out against the snow like targets on a range, and the winter of 1939 was one of the coldest on record. Temperatures dropped to -40 degrees. The Soviets, unprepared for it, froze by the thousands. Into this frozen hell stepped a 34-year-old farmer with a rifle and a lifetime of knowing exactly how to survive in it. Hayha was assigned to a unit defending the Kola River. The fighting there was savage, and it was here that Simo Häyhä became something out of a nightmare. Dressed entirely in white, he would position himself in the snow before dawn and wait, for hours, sometimes all day, motionless, silent, watching. And here's the detail that makes his story almost unbelievable. He didn't use a telescopic scope. He used iron sights, the basic metal sights that come standard on the rifle. While snipers around the world relied on magnified optics, Hayhä picked off targets at long range with nothing but his own eyes and a steel notch. He had reasons. A scope's glass lens can catch the sunlight and flash, giving away a sniper's position. Using a scope also forces you to raise your head higher, exposing more of yourself. By using iron sights, Hayhä kept his head low, his profile tiny, and his position invisible. It was harder, but it kept him alive. His attention to detail was obsessive. He packed the snow down in front of him, so the muzzle blast wouldn't kick up a telltale cloud. He kept snow in his mouth, so that his breath wouldn't steam in the freezing air and reveal where he was hiding. Every tiny thing that could betray him, he eliminated. The kills mounted. By some accounts, Hayha was killing soldiers at a staggering rate. On his deadliest day, he is said to have killed 25 men. His confirmed sniper total reached over 500 in less than 100 days. And that number doesn't even include the men he killed with a submachine gun in close combat, which may push his total well beyond 500. The Soviets noticed. An entire section of the front was losing men to a single, invisible shooter. They began to talk about him in fearful whispers. Belaya Smert, the White Death. And the Red Army decided he had to be eliminated. They sent their own snipers to hunt him. Hayha killed them. They sent teams specifically tasked with finding him. He killed them too. So the Soviets gave up on subtlety. They called in artillery strikes on the areas where they thought he might be hiding, shelling entire sections of forest just to kill one man. The ground was torn apart, the trees were shredded, and still, somehow, Hayha survived. He simply moved, found a new position, and kept firing. To the soldiers facing him, he must have seemed less like a man and more like a ghost, something that could not be found, could not be stopped, and could not be killed. On the 6th of March 1940, Hayha's luck finally ran out. During a firefight, a Soviet soldier fired a round that struck Hayha directly in the face, in the lower left jaw. It wasn't an ordinary bullet, it was an explosive round. The bullet tore through his jaw and cheek, taking a large portion of it away. The soldiers who found him said half his face was missing. They carried him off the battlefield, certain he was dead or dying. He was piled in with the deceased. And then, someone noticed his leg twitch. Hayha was rushed to a hospital. He had fallen into a deep coma. The damage to his face was catastrophic. For days, he hovered between life and death. And then, on the 13th of March 1940, he woke up. And by an almost unbelievable twist of timing, the 13th of March was the exact day the Winter War ended. Think about that. He went into a coma in the middle of a war for his nation's survival, with half his face gone. And he opened his eyes on the very day that war came to an end. The White Death had survived. Hayha's recovery took years and multiple surgeries to rebuild his shattered jaw. He was promoted from corporal straight to second lieutenant, one of the most dramatic battlefield promotions in Finnish history, in recognition of what he'd done. But the war was over, and Simo Häyhä did something remarkable. He went home. He returned to the quiet life he'd always known. He became a successful moose hunter and a dog breeder. He spent his remaining decades farming, in the same forests where he'd learned to shoot as a boy. Years later, when people asked him how he became such an incredible marksman, his answer was always simple. Practice, he said. And when asked if he felt regret for the lives he'd taken, he replied that he had only done what he was told to do, as well as he possibly could, in defense of his homeland. He never boasted. He never embellished. He simply did his duty and went home. Simo Häyhä died in 2002 at the age of 96. A farmer who, for 100 days in the frozen forests of Finland, became the deadliest sniper the world has ever known, and then quietly laid it all down. That's the thing about untold figures. The most extraordinary among us are often the ones who never asked to be remembered at all. If this story gripped you, subscribe. Next time, we're heading to feudal Japan to tell the story of an African man who rose to become a samurai under the most powerful warlord in the country. His name was Yasuke. I'm glad you're here. I'll see you in the next one.